Which rookie quarterback is going to have the best season? Well, I'm going to attempt to answer that question. I've run the data, the analytics, all of my models. I've spit out thousands of scenarios, and I've read through all of them. Then I put those numbers in the trash, lit them on fire, and decided to go off a gut instinct. This bad boy's gotten me this far. Why would I trust anything else at this point? Had a meeting with YouTube. They said try and up your sex appeal, so, that's why. Why trust numbers? They always lie. It has been beaten into our skulls over the last few weeks that 6 QBs were taken in the first 12 picks at the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, out of those 6, 4 to 5 are expected to start at some point in 2024, Michael Penix Jr. being the exception. Unless he does start, in which case something has gone terribly wrong in Atlanta. Like Kirk Cousins figured out his neighbor is Dwight Howard and refuses to leave his house. So, we're keeping this to Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, Draketh Maye, JJ McCarthy, and the man God has personally blessed, Bo Nix. Bo Nix, son. Nixon. Vote Nixon. We're going. That's good sports. All right, let's start at number 1. The first overall pick, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy, the dude, the bear. Fuck! Caleb Williams. Now he's going to start from day 1. And as long as he's healthy, there's no quarterback competition in Chicago, which is different than there's no competitive quarterback in Chicago, which is what we've grown accustomed to. Now, we've heard that Williams might be entering the best situation out of any of these quarterbacks, but I'm going to push back on that just a little bit, all right? I get that he has 2 established number 1 type wide receivers in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Plus, they spent the 10th overall pick on Rome Odunze, so they might end up with 3 at the end of the day. Plus, I've said several times, I love Cole Kmet.
What in the name of Shrek are your hands? This is a 10.5. You have the biggest hands I've ever actually seen in my entire life.
Yeah, I mean, it helps with my job, though.
But there's a lot more that goes into a situation than ball catchers. Also, how does nobody mention that Justin Herbert also had Keenan Allen and didn't do shit with him for 4 years? Remember that? Are we really going to assume Caleb Williams is a better pure passer than Justin Herbert out the gate? I don't think so. Last year, the Bears finished with one of the weaker offensive lines in football, and not just because Justin Fields was holding onto the ball forever. Tevin Jenkins has been good at guard, but there are a lot of question marks with that unit that didn't get answered in part because their 2 top 10 picks were spent at QB and wide receiver in this draft. Now, Chargers fans can complain all they want that they took Joe Alt over a ball catcher, but I bet Justin Herbert was a big fan of that pick. Chicago's tackles, Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones, are young. I couldn't fucking see! And what they have done in their rookie and sophomore season was solid. If they continue this year to develop, we could see those dividends really begin to pay off. We could see that pay dividends. Finance confuses me. But it remains a bit of a question mark. Why? Well, Caleb Williams has a complicated relationship with pressure and his offensive line. He's really good at escaping a bad pocket, but he's also really good at escaping a clean pocket. Now, part of the trick for the Bears coaching staff will be getting him comfortable enough to hang in the pocket long enough to play pocket pool and make throws on time. Even though his creativity and ability to put the ball anywhere he wants is elite, they have to ask Picasso to paint a still life for half the game, like we watched Mahomes do this last season. Which, of course, brings me to the coaching staff. Matt Eberflus is 10-24 as a head coach. That's the bottom line. He did just enough to keep his job last year, and I'm glad he's getting another chance. But it would be hard to convince anyone that Caleb Williams wouldn't be better off with an offensive-minded coach that arrived in Chicago the same year he did, for continuity if nothing else. Shane Waldron is calling the plays in Chicago after helping resurrect Geno Smith's career in 2022, but the Seahawks offense took a step back last year, finishing 17th in scoring and was middle of the pack in most offensive categories. The advantage that Waldron and Caleb do have is that they've both known that they're going to be together this coming season for a while, well before the draft, and according to Williams' quarterback coach, they got a head start on terminology, route concepts about 6 weeks in advance.
I've been home for 5 months.
That's nice. And I think Caleb Williams is talented enough to make any situation passable, but I still expect a learning curve. But what about Jayden Daniels, who went 1 pick later? Like Caleb, Daniels is entering a situation in Washington with a former defensive coordinator as a head coach and a very familiar name calling the plays. A lot of how you think Jayden Daniels plays in year 1 comes down to your opinion of Cliff Kingsbury. He runs the air raid offense, and just by the name alone, you're going to assume that all they do is throw the ball 60 yards down the field every play. But I think Kingsbury was actually fairly good at designing quarterback runs for Kyler Murray in Arizona. Like Murray, Daniels is far from a bruising runner, but his play caller knows how to move guards and create the right amount of deception to get Daniels out on the edge where he can show off his straight line speed. And that's how he's going to have a lot of success as a rookie. Now, Daniels will also be starting from day 1, barring injury. Whether it was a wise move or not, trading Sam Howell this offseason basically assured that. But I like that he's entering an offense with a strong veteran presence. There's a mix of young guys with upside like Jahan Dotson and newly added Luke McCaffrey from the strong, virile Bronco lines of the McCaffrey family. Oh, he'll find his way into the end zone, and you're going to love him, Washington. Plus, guys that are going to make his life easier. Running back Austin Eckler, veteran tight end Zach Ertz, and of course, Terry McLaurin. I've heard he's scary. Here's what I don't like. Washington had the worst scoring defense in 2023. Dan Quinn should get them closer to average, but that's going to take some time. Daniels might be in a few situations where he's standing in the pocket while pass rushers can tee off on him because they're up by multiple scores. The other team's up by multiple scores. Also, and most importantly, let us remember that this is still fucking Washington. It may take a full decade to remove the stank Dan Snyder left behind. His bullshit has a half-life like plutonium.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Drake Maye, he went off the board 3rd overall, you know that, and he's the first of the first-round QBs that probably won't start week 1, if I were to bet on it. And since this episode is not sponsored by a sportsbook, I won't bet on it. Instead, I'm going to invest that money in Apple. Not the tech company, apples, just apples, except for those fraudulent, red, delicious. The Patriots, though, have arguably the best bridge QB out there in one Jacoby Brissett, the most perennially underrated QB in the league. There's also this important note. Drake Maye is not a finished product mechanically. That's not a huge problem because he's young, and his issues all seem pretty fixable given time and the right coaching. If you recall, one Patty Mahomes was one of the wonkiest looking throwers of the football anyone had ever seen until old Andy Reid got a year to iron out a lot of the details. But both of those things should probably keep Maye off the field for at least the first few games of the season. But if and when he does play, he's got the displeasure of walking into a Patriots offense. An offense that scored under 14 points per game in 2023. And yeah, that's in part because their options at QB were limited to McCarthy Jones and a Bailey Zappi. That's like going to get ice cream and seeing that your options are sugar-free vanilla and sugar-free vanilla. Neither of those guys were getting a lot of help from their skill position players, I'll give them that. And the toppings they had for these sugar-free vanilla quarterbacks? Coffee grounds. Used coffee grounds. New England has tried to correct that by drafting a couple of mid-round receivers, Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. But like Maye, I'm not sure anyone's expecting them to light up defenses right out of the gate. He's still saddled with the run game that averaged under 4 yards per carry last year, and his most proven weapon is the Kendrick born identity.
Jesus Christ, a Kendrick born.
What I do like is that New England defense, which is going to put him in good situations and keep him out of spots where he'd have to throw more than 30 times a game. But of course, that's all a matter of when he actually gets under center for the Patriots. And we just don't know who Jerod Mayo is going to be as a head coach, but again, the thing I trust him to do is keep the defense on par with what we saw the last few years in New England. Now that question also applies to one J.J. McCarthy, who's roughly the same age as old Drake Maye, but threw 239 fewer passes than Maye did in college. Sure, he didn't need to, right? Sure, he was efficient when he did pass, and sure, he didn't have his suit tailored, and he is going into an excellent situation in Minnesota, but any situation in the NFL is ultimately going to be a downgrade from the luxury of playing quarterback for the 2023 Michigan Wolverines. That was a safe haven to be a QB. If McCarthy does beat out Sam Darnold, who was drafted higher than him, if you recall, and starts day one for the Vikings, that's going to be a really positive sign because I don't think Kevin O'Connell is going to be in any rush to start his rookie quarterback unless he shows he's immediately going to give him the best chance to win this season. And of course, JJ's going to look in that huddle and see Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson. Honestly, I'd put that trio well above what Chicago is working with, and I don't think that's terribly controversial. I think the Bears' standards are just pretty low. The issue I see is that trio is so good that Sam Darnold might just fuck around and look great. He's only 26 and is heading into his 7th NFL season. I think there's a good chance we don't see McCarthy at all in 2024. Remember, O'Connell navigated 4 different starting quarterbacks last season, from the Pastronaut to Nick Mullins to Jaron Hall. What would frighten me about McCarthy, if I were a Vikings fan, is that I have no idea how he's going to respond to adversity. Now, that's not to say he'll fold up like a lawn chair. It's just that he's only lost 1 game since his junior year of high school. You can meditate and sit under the goalposts as much as you want, but I'm curious to see how he responds to a loss or back-to-back losses or a 3-pick game. I think the experience of going through the ups and downs, not just throwing a high volume of passes, matters. And maybe that's why I'm so high. Rocky Mountain High. I'm Bo Nix! God bless Bo Nix with the perfect fit in Oregon, because Lord knows Auburn wasn't the right spot for him. Now, Bo navigated through troubled waters in college. He went through the mile of shit like Andy Dufresne, and he came out clean on the other side. And yes, Andy Dufresne might have been a pretty good quarterback, because you can look it up. Tim Robbins, 6'5", perfect quarterback size. Now, it's well documented that Nix started the most games in college football history. 983 starts to be exact. He and his dad, Patrick Nix, actually played together at Auburn in the early 90s. But none of that experience matters if you don't see improvement. Fortunately, we did. And since he's not a running back, you don't worry about too many carries in college, too many reps, do ya? And we saw a shit ton of improvement from Bo Nix. Just as much as we witnessed with Michael Penix when he left Indiana for Washington. The knock against Bo is the offense, the quick hitters, the screen passes. Ironically, I think that's what's going to give him the best chance of having the best rookie season of all these young QBs. Or not so young. He's so good in the quick game that it's going to give Denver's offense a level of baseline competence and ball movement that is so desperately needed and lacked a year ago. And all those quick passes aren't cheap, because if everyone could run them as well as Oregon did last year, guess what? They would have. There are still quarterbacks in the NFL that struggle to throw quick passes to the correct shoulder, and one of them is in Denver right now, and another one was also in Denver last year. I'm a fucking expert in seeing this. They're both named Wilson, if you missed it. Now, getting the ball out quickly and accurately is an overlooked and undervalued skill that Bo Nix excels at, and it's going to help him out tremendously. It's what made Tom Brady so good, Peyton Manning so unstoppable, and it's why a guy like Tua, yes, Tua works. The X factor is Bo Nix is arguably much more athletic than any of those quarterbacks. He's going to have a high completion percentage because of this skill. It's going to give him a high floor as a rookie quarterback and just as a quarterback in general. And he's joining Sean Payton's offense where the quick game is their bread and butter. If we're not paying attention to Bo Nix, it will probably be because of the Broncos defense coached by one Vance Joseph. He's got another full year before he earns my trust. Now, it's also worth noting that there's going to be a strong level of comfort there for Nix. Not only is his favorite Oregon target, Troy Franklin, on the team, but he's going to stick those big hands of his into a very familiar taint when Alex Forsythe, his 2022 Oregon center, snaps him the ball. During Nix's private workout, Sean Payton blindfolded him and had him test 35 center taint several times, and each time he correctly identified and ultimately preferred Forsythe's taint. He also felt the lump on another center and helped one man get an early identification on a tumor. Bo Nix saves lives. But that never gets mentioned, does it? Does it? Now, it might not sound like a huge deal, but the quarterback and center, they work together on a lot more than just exchanging the ball. They work together on identifying blitzes, defenses, calling out the mic, whoever that guy is, and of course, swapping wives.
You get to know your quarterback very well, but he puts good pressure on your butt.
By all accounts, Nix is way ahead of the curve in terms of doing that both pre-game and pre-snap at the line of scrimmage. Now, we've heard that Nix doesn't have a strong arm, and maybe it's not the strongest arm, but that's a fallacy. It appears to be well strong enough because, believe it or not, he did in fact throw the ball down the field a number of times over the last couple years. Maybe that limits his potential, and I'm not saying he's going to be the best quarterback from this class in 5 years, but there's not as much, if anything, that needs correction mechanically. His feet are as sound as it gets, he's got a good release, and he knows how to navigate the pocket without hitting the eject button and bailing out. And this often gets overlooked, but Nix is an athlete. The quarterback run game, a lot like Jayden Daniels, is going to be a part of the offense right from the get-go, and that's going to keep rushers from pinning their ears back on Nix. But the real tragedy here is I think that if Michael Penix were to start in Atlanta day one, he would be my clear favorite to have the best rookie quarterback season of any of these QBs. Like Nix, he's 100% ready to start. He plays from the pocket better than any of the quarterbacks in this class. He has the best deep ball with the best weapons, save for Minnesota in this discussion, but would have hands down the best offensive line to play behind. Now, Bo Nix might not even have the most wins of this group his rookie season, but I believe the stats, the production, and lack of turnovers will make him number one his rookie season. Russell Wilson was and always has been very safe when throwing the football. He doesn't throw a lot of picks, but he fumbles quite a bit, and he takes too many damn sacks. Sam Howell, Justin Fields, they had the same big sack problem. This is the final piece that gives the edge to Nix in my opinion, because Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels both took north of 20 and 30 sacks last season. In fact, Daniels' pressure to sack ratio was 24.5%, on par with Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. Michael Penix was at 6.5, the lowest in this group, and Nix at 11.6. Bo Nix was sacked just 10 total times in 2 seasons at Oregon. Yes, because he got rid of the ball quickly. Again, a strength. He and Penix are the best in this class, and that's a big skill that translates to the NFL, assuming you don't have a bottom 5 offensive line. And the offensive line you were playing for in college wasn't just mauling their opponents. So, to wrap it up, here's my rankings for best rookie seasons. Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy if he starts just based on the situation, Jayden Daniels, then Drake Maye. That's how I see this rookie quarterback class ranking out. But that's just for the upcoming season. Ultimately, you might not be surprised that I'm giving Nix the edge to have the best rookie season out of these 5 QBs. Is that conflict of interest that he's my quarterback? I don't know. Maybe. Go fuck yourself. But I gave you my reasons, okay? If I'm wrong, I'll look dumb again. A look that's starting to really suit me. So, whatever. Thanks for watching. That's good. Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube. If you don't subscribe here on YouTube, you'll find a federal agent at your door. Not to arrest you, but just to ask you some questions about why you didn't subscribe.